The morning bell had barely rung when the hallway fell silent. Students leaned against their lockers, eyes darting nervously toward the center of the crowd forming by the vending machines. Everyone knew the tension that hung in the air. It was Jason, the school's most feared bully. He was broad-shouldered, always surrounded by his gang, and his presence meant trouble was about to happen. But today, his eyes were fixed on someone unexpected. Standing in front of the vending machine was Lena, the quietest girl in school. Always tucked away in the back row of class, speaking in whispers, her long hair hiding her face like a shield. Nobody knew much about her except that she had transferred from another city last semester. She carried herself with an almost invisible presence, never making eye contact, never talking back. That's probably why Jason thought she'd be the perfect target. "Hey, mouse," Jason sneered, stepping forward and blocking her path. "Got any spare change?" His voice dripped with mockery. Lena kept her eyes down, clutching her snack like it was her last lifeline. Jason's smirk widened when she didn't answer. "Oh, so you're too good to talk to me now." He reached forward and placed his hand firmly on her shoulder, an action that would ignite something nobody saw coming. In that exact moment, Lena's entire demeanor shifted. It was subtle at first, her shoulders straightened, her grip loosened on the snack, and for the first time, she raised her head. Her eyes locked onto Jason's, and the hallway seemed to shrink under the weight of that glare. Jason, confused but still cocky, didn't see the storm building in front of him. Without warning, Lena moved. 10 seconds, no more. That's all it took for the bully to go from confident predator to wide-eyed, breathless shock. She grabbed his wrist, twisting it in a way that made him stagger, then swept his legs from under him with precision. He hit the floor hard, his friends frozen in disbelief. Her movements weren't frantic, they were controlled, efficient, like she had done this 1,000 times before. Jason scrambled up, clutching his wrist, but Lena's eyes stayed locked on his. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Don't ever touch me again." The crowd was dead silent. Nobody had ever stood up to Jason before, let alone dropped him like that. Whispers rippled through the hallway as she walked away, leaving Jason's gang unsure whether to help him or pretend they didn't know him. What nobody in that hallway knew was that Lena's story went far deeper than a single act of defiance. Years before, in her old school, she had been relentlessly bullied, not by one, but by many. The verbal taunts, the physical shoves, the feeling of being powerless, it had nearly broken her. Her parents, desperate to help, had enrolled her in a self-defense program, thinking it might boost her confidence. They had no idea it would awaken something fierce inside her. Lena didn't just learn self-defense, she became a martial arts prodigy. Every strike, every block, every movement had been drilled into her until it became instinct. Still, she never bragged about it. She wasn't looking for fights. She just wanted peace. But peace had a way of shattering when bullies thought you were weak. After that hallway incident, Lena thought things might calm down, but challenges didn't end there. Jason, humiliated and desperate to regain his reputation, began plotting small acts of revenge, locking her locker, spreading rumors, tripping her in the cafeteria. It was a test of her patience, a temptation to respond with the same force she'd used before. But Lena had learned something even more powerful than self-defense: control. Instead of reacting to every provocation, she documented his actions, spoke to teachers with confidence, and gathered witnesses. Slowly, Jason's power began to crumble, not because of fear, but because the truth was catching up to him. His friends started drifting away, realizing intimidation didn't work on someone who wouldn't be broken. The turning point came 2 weeks later during gym class. Jason tried one last time to corner Lena, shoving her against the wall when the teacher wasn't looking. But before she even lifted a hand, 3 classmates stepped forward. "Back off, Jason," one of them said firmly. "We're done watching you act tough." Jason's face flushed, but this time, he walked away. Not because he was scared of Lena, though he should have been, but because he realized he was alone. By the end of the semester, Lena wasn't just the shy girl anymore. She was someone people respected, not because she could fight, but because she stood her ground with dignity and never let hatred change who she was. And if anyone asked her how she found the courage, she would smile and say, "Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. It means I'm waiting until you give me a reason not to be." The inspiring message lingered long after she left that school. You never know what battles someone has fought to find their strength, and you should never mistake kindness for weakness. The first period hadn't even started yet, but the air in the hallway was already heavy with that unspoken tension every student recognized. You could hear it in the way conversations hushed, in the way backpacks shifted nervously on shoulders. Jason Holt was on the move. Jason wasn't just your average school bully, he was the kind that thrived on fear. Tall, muscular from years of sports, and backed by a loyal pack of troublemakers, he walked the halls like he owned them. And today, he was looking for entertainment. His eyes locked on the vending machine, where Lena Ward stood quietly, trying to buy her breakfast snack before class. Lena wasn't just shy, she was almost invisible. She dressed plainly, kept her head down, and never drew attention to herself. Her soft voice was rarely heard above a whisper, and her notebook was always filled with doodles instead of words. The kind of girl most people forgot was even there, except for Jason. "Hey, Mouse," he called out, his voice carrying down the hallway like a warning siren. Lena froze. "Got any spare change?" She didn't look up. She just pressed the buttons on the vending machine and waited for the bag of pretzels to drop. Jason stepped closer. "What, you deaf or something?" His tone sharpened. The crowd of students around them sensed what was coming and began to watch. When Lena still didn't answer, Jason reached out, placing his hand firmly on her shoulder. It wasn't gentle, it was the kind of grip that said, "I'm in control here." The next few seconds felt like they happened in slow motion. Lena straightened her back, her head lifting until her eyes met Jason's. The crowd didn't see fear there, they saw something else. Something sharper. Jason smirked. "That's better." Before he could finish, Lena's hand shot up, grabbing his wrist in a grip so precise and firm that Jason's smirk faltered instantly. With a swift twist and a pivot of her foot, she spun his arm behind his back, forcing him off balance. Her leg swept under his, and in one fluid motion, the school's most feared bully was on the ground, stunned, gasping, and clutching his arm. It had taken 10 seconds. The hallway erupted in shocked whispers. Jason's friends just stood there, frozen. Lena didn't yell, didn't gloat, she simply leaned down enough for Jason to hear her calm, even voice. "Don't ever touch me again." Then she picked up her pretzels, turned, and walked away like nothing happened. But that wasn't the end of it. Lena's calmness had a reason. Back in her old school, she had been the target of constant bullying. Day after day, she endured cruel words, shoved books, and whispers that followed her everywhere. She had cried in bathrooms, eaten lunch alone, and begged her parents not to make her go back. Everything changed the day her father, an ex-military man, enrolled her in a martial arts program. At first, she resisted. She didn't want to fight, she just wanted the pain to stop. But over time, her instructors taught her something deeper than kicks and punches. They taught her awareness. Control. How to breathe through fear. How to act only when necessary. That training had been her hidden strength for years. She had promised herself she would only ever use it to protect herself or someone else, not to show off, not to prove a point. Jason, however, didn't take his humiliation well. The next day, rumors started. He told anyone who would listen that Lena had cheap-shot him. His gang began blocking her path in the halls, kicking her chair in class, and making loud, mocking comments whenever she walked by. Lena faced a choice, fight back every time, or take a different approach. She chose the latter. She began keeping a small notebook, writing down every incident with times, dates, and witnesses. She quietly built her case. She also started helping classmates when she saw Jason targeting them, sliding into situations with quiet but firm intervention. "She's with me," she'd say, standing between Jason's gang and a smaller kid. Sometimes she didn't even need to touch anyone, her presence was enough. Slowly, people began to see Lena differently. She wasn't just the quiet girl anymore. She was someone who didn't tolerate cruelty. And word spread fast. The turning point came during gym class 2 weeks later. Jason, still nursing his pride, waited until the teacher stepped out to get the equipment. He cornered Lena near the bleachers, shoving her shoulder just hard enough to make it clear he wanted a reaction. But before Lena could respond, 3 classmates stepped in, students who had watched her stand up for others. "Back off, Jason," one said firmly. "We're done watching you act tough." Jason's eyes darted around. His gang. Nowhere to be seen. He was alone. And in that moment, he realized his power wasn't fear, it was numbers. Without them, he had nothing. He muttered something under his breath and walked away. For the first time, Lena saw his shoulders slump, not in anger, but in defeat. By the end of the semester, Jason had faded into the background. Lena didn't brag about what had happened. She didn't need to. Her message had been clear. Being quiet doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm patient. But push me too far, and you'll meet the side of me you never wanted to see. And that's when people truly understood, kindness is powerful, but when it's backed by strength, it becomes unstoppable.